In this video, I'm going to discuss how desert organisms find water. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Vernon. A prominent theme in my channel is getting to know nature to a deeper level, and a lot of that will be around deserts because I used to be a desert guide. If you enjoyed delving into nature, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing lots more of these kinds of videos. In my recent videos, I've been talking about this problem, how desert animals are able to survive in deserts, and particularly how they deal with the fact that deserts are places with very little water when life needs water. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the ways that I find most interesting of how desert organisms acquire water. The first one is the fog-basking beetle. These are really interesting little creatures living in the coastal regions of Namibia's Namib Desert. The coastal region of the Namib Desert frequently has fog. Something like 220 days in the year, the coastal zone is bathed in fog. Fog provides a lot of moisture to the desert, but fog also presents a particular problem. Fog isn't rain, and so for animals that need to drink, the water flying around in the sky isn't very helpful. That is, it's not very helpful unless you've got a trick up your sleeve to get that moisture out of the air. And the Onymacaris beetle, the fog-basking beetle, has a particularly interesting way to do this. Early in the mornings before sunrise, these beetles come out of the dune sand near the coast and climb their way to the top of a dune ridge, and then face their body into the prevailing wind coming off the sea so that fog moisture can condense on their body, and they basically do a bit of a handstand so that the moisture condensing on their body ends up dripping down to their mouth, and they're able to drink the water. Several well-known creatures in the Namib Desert who live along the coastal region do it in a much more simple way. They just hang out in the foggy morning air and then lick their body. Two examples of these would be the palmetto gecko, the web-footed gecko, and the small sidewinder or Perengues adder. Plants also have a particular problem with getting moisture out of fog water because, unlike drawing up water through your roots, when moisture just lands on their surface, they have the problem of osmotic pressure gradients. So when water is sitting on the outside of a cell and the cell has its own moisture under high pressure inside the cell, that water from the outside isn't going to cross in. It's not going to go from an area of low pressure to an area of high pressure. There are some techniques, and I'll probably cover some of these in future videos. But another way is that some plants just grow hammock dunes. So in other words, they let their roots capture sand, and then the plant grows on top of those higher and higher until it's making its own little dune and has lots of little fine hair roots throughout that little dune that it sits on top of. So that's a hammock dune, and moisture gets trapped from the fog onto these. For some animals outside of the fog zone, the only option is to try to find open water, the rare springs or whatever source of open water there might be for them to go to. Getting to these water sources in those areas where they even exist presents a host of additional challenges. For example, it might just be a long way to go, exposed to the sun, exposed to predators, and often simply just hard to find. One family of birds has a whole set of interesting adaptations to solve this problem. These are the sandgrouse. The sandgrouse is a family of birds just found in Africa and mostly just in the dry regions. Sandgrouse are sometimes termed obligate drinkers. They have to drink water, and they may fly enormous distances on a daily basis just to go to and from water. This gathering of sandgrouse at water obviously exposes them to predators, usually predatory birds that are there waiting for them. Their primary defense around predation is simply to all go at the same time. So each species of sandgrouse has their particular time when most of them will fly into a water source. The birds that get there early will often land some distance from the water until there's safety in numbers. And so a predator might almost get a sandgrass on a daily basis, but many thousands might drink. Another interesting thing that's very well known with the sandgrass is the fact that their chicks can't fly to water. And so their way to get around this is to trap water in their chest feathers and fly the water back and let their chicks drink out of the chest feathers. The springs or water sources aren't always in easily accessible areas. And one of the animals that's really incredible at finding its way to springs high up in the mountains are the mountain zebras. Normally we think of zebras as plains animals, but the mountain zebras have an incredible ability to climb up into quite difficult, tricky areas in the desert hills in order to reach some springs. If you've watched some of my other videos about the Namib Desert, one of the really important things in the Namib is the fact that there's these dry riverbeds. They often have water underneath the ground. In the areas where you find the desert elephants, they can often be really useful at getting to these water sources that other animals just can't reach. The elephants will dig open a hole, and once it's open, other things like baboons and mountain zebras and all sorts of things will keep digging at it and keep that water exposed for a while. Aside from the fog and from drinking water at water sources, a third way to get at water is through food. In the Namib, a very, very important fruit is the nara fruit, another thing I've talked about elsewhere in my videos. The nara fruit often grows along dune margins, and these plants produce large round fruit. And so many things eat these fruits, including not only small creatures, but jackals, birds, even ostrich, and even brown hyenas will eat them. So where you can get at a melon-like fruit, obviously that's a great source of moisture. Some animals don't even need to eat the most succulent, moist things to get moisture out of their food. There's a thing called metabolic water, where animals can eat some food where water is a part of the structure of the plant, and as they eat it, they break down in their stomachs the structure of the plant and release the water that's available in that. It's not a rich source of moisture, but in the desert where every little trick helps, metabolic water is used by some creatures. So that's it for this video. These are some of the interesting ways that animals find water in the deserts. In my next video, I'm going to talk about how animals prevent losing the moisture once they've got some. And there are a whole range of interesting adaptations around that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd be really appreciative if you give it a like. And hopefully you check out some of my other videos.